Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm so excited to share my experience with these new brushes that Emily Hughes made together with Craft Tamil. I received them about a week ago, so I had some time to get to know them. They came in a really neat packaging, and the brushes had brush shapers on them to keep them safe from transport. So after I washed that off, I started trying them out. I started with watercolor because that's a medium I'm most comfortable with right now. My first impression is that they are really pleasant for hot pressed paper. I love how precise they are, and because they are made for gouache, they don't hold as much water. They're a little bit on the stiffer side compared to most watercolor brushes. So it's very easy to dig into the paint and get a very creamy or buttery consistency. And I think I'm gonna use this little brush washer together with these brushes because it's much easier if I wipe off the excess paint on a piece of cloth first and then rinse them in this jar. It has a mesh thing in it to help the brush to release the pigment. And I think the davinci's fit brushes have some similarities to these brushes. It holds slightly more water than Emily's brushes. And you can tell from this angle that davinci brush is not tapered, so it's not gonna be as precise. Here's how they look together with my casaneo brush. You can tell by the thickness of the bristles how much water they're designed to hold. And I also checked that the davinci fit brush does not come in this 1-inch size, which I think is the star of the set. I can't seem to find any brush like it anywhere. So I decided to paint a quick watercolor still life just to get an idea how they behave in action. I think I accidentally used Arches paper for this one, which is a mistake because Arches paper are very thirsty. Looking back, I think I should have wet the background first and then charged the thick paint onto the paper so it wouldn't have dried so fast and got this streaky look. But I'm very happy to find out that these brushes are very easy to maneuver and it's very satisfying. I think I was a bit carried away by how satisfying it felt, and I didn't even try to stop myself from overworking this piece. I just kept thinking, like, what if I do this? What happens if I try that? So it did turn out to be overworked, but that's completely fine. The point of this painting is to try the new brushes. I also used my casaneo brush here in conjunction with Emily's brushes. I think this is going to be how I use them for watercolor in the future. They seem to complement each other really well. So now I'm acquainted with the brushes. I want to try them out with my gouache. I read in some comment somewhere, someone suggested a DIY Stay Wet palette made with Swedish dishcloth, which is like a thin, spongy cleaning cloth, and then layering a piece of palette paper over it. I'm quite skeptical about this, but I'm gonna give it a try. And as soon as I start, I feel like these brushes are just in their natural habitat, doing exactly what they're designed for. It's so smooth and precise. And even if they're a bit stiffer than watercolor brushes, they're not abrasive on the paper, even if when I tried scrubbing a bit. Another great thing about these brushes is that they hold just enough water to glide on the paper, but not so much water that they don't dry quick enough to layer on top. Now I'm ready to paint something. It happens to be golden hour and I was looking at some beautiful clouds outside my window. It feels so intuitive to be very expressive with these brushes, and I had such a great time being playful in this quick mini windowscape. The next day, I felt ready to try a more serious painting, and I'm using this reference from Cinderella. I love this reference so much, so I was kind of nervous because my expectations were quite high, and also because now I feel like I have these amazing brushes. I can't blame my tools like I did last time. So if it turned out badly, I could only blame myself. But I try to see it as maybe it's a chance to expose some of my shortcomings so that I can improve upon them. I watched Emily's launch celebration live draw session, and in the beginning she used burnt sienna to mark out the darkest part of the portrait, so that's what I'm doing here. Personally, I also like to paint the darker or most saturated shapes in the garments or the hair first. I find it easier to adjust the skin tone and the value of the skin if I already have these surrounding colors in place. And as I slowly progress into the so-called ugly face, I got more and more apprehensive. It almost feels like after each brushstroke, I want to take a mini pause to assess the damage. It's really hard to explain because looking back, it didn't actually look that bad. It's just when I was in the thick of it, I only see the things that I want to fix in a very critical way. And I did take a break from the painting to wash my water jar and clean my brushes with soap because I didn't want to have any of that black or turquoise color to show up on her skin. It was fine that they showed up a bit in her hair and the cloth she was wearing in her hair, but for the skin, I wanted to look more vibrant and clean. I think her skin did have some dirty spots on them from the scene, but I want to be very careful where to place these dirty spots. I don't want them all over the place. I wanted to continue and finish this painting, but it was almost midnight. I was getting a bit sloppy, so I decided to call it a day and come back in the morning. The next day when I came back, it somehow felt like the most difficult part was over, and whether it was good or bad, there isn't much I can change anymore because the foundation has been done. So what I can do now is to clean it up, tighten the details a little bit, and fill in the white spaces that got left out from yesterday. And I also added some details like indicating the hair, eyebrows, and eyelashes. So this part went very quickly. I think it was only 20 to 30 minutes. And I brought back my black paint to bring back some of the darker parts and also to carve out her silhouette a little bit more. This part of the painting is really enjoyable because I feel like it's less likely that I make some bad decision and ruin the whole piece. I also squeezed out some clean, fresh white paint for the highlight. I have permanent white on my palette, but I feel like it gets dirty pretty quickly from dipping my brush in there, so I consider that one to be the mixing white. I still think it's a lot better than zinc white, which is not as opaque. So this is how the painting turned out. There is still a few things I might want to come back and fix, but for now I think I'm just gonna leave it as it is. I love this reference picture a lot. I think she has a very unique expression, probably because her stepmother said or did something that was very cruel to her, and you can tell that she was hurt and sad, but not in a depressed way. She still got that spirit in her, and I really like this expression. I'm not sure if I captured that very well in this painting. I might want to paint the same reference photo with watercolor or oil pastel in another video, so let me know if you're interested to see that. And also just in general, if you have any constructive criticism to my videos or my painting, you're very welcome to let me know in the comments. I also want to thank Emily for being so unreserved about sharing her painting knowledge. I feel like I have learned so much from her. And for the brush set, I would say it is absolutely perfect for painting gouache. I have nothing to complain about. It only made my painting process feel a lot more intuitive. And for watercolor, I would say it is really great for charging paint, dry brush effect, and also lifting. Maybe not the best for big wet washes or very juicy splatters, but I think pairing it together with a silicone paint pusher, you can create some very fine, misty airbrush look. It almost looks like a digital noise brush, which I think is really cool. And for my homemade Stay Wet palette, it actually held up quite okay. I was a bit surprised that it actually worked. And I forgot to mention the paper I was using for this portrait is the Fabriano Studio watercolor paper. It is a little bit thinner because it's only 200 GSM, but it's still 25% cotton in it. And it did have some warping happening, but not to a degree that it affected my painting process. So that's all for today's video. I hope you liked it or find it helpful in some way, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.